It's the Brad and John Show.
And it is May 19th. It's Monday. This is the C block, Charlie block, which means we start right around 7:40, but we're 5 minutes late this morning. John, Wikipedia. You ready for this? This is
I can't wait, Brad.
This is reference to the B block, which we just finished. A panty raid was a prank occurring in American coeducational colleges in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. The term dates to February 1949. They've got an exact date. It consisted of a horde of male students attempting to invade living quarters of female students and steal their panties as trophies. Now, can you imagine? Can you imagine if that happened today? I mean, back in the day, it was like, oh, those boys will be boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But today it would come with a whole bunch of sensitivity training and, anti-patriarchy, courses you'd have to take after that.
Panty raids were the first college craze after World War II, following 1930s craze of goldfish swallowing and stuffing numbers of people in a phone booth. You remember this one, too? This was another one.
I do, yeah. I remember pictures of it.
Right. The mock battles.
And by the way, young people right now are like, what's a phone booth?
Right, exactly. The mock battles that ensued between male and female students echoed their riotous battles between freshmen and upperclassmen, which were an annual ritual at many colleges in the 20th century. The first documented incident, this is a panty raid, occurred on February 25th, 1949 at Augustana College, Rock Island, Illinois, just not too far from us. Around 125 men entered the women's building. The first party entered through heating tunnels beneath the building. Once inside, they unlocked the door for the remaining raiders to enter, locked the house mother in her apartment, and cut the light and phone lines. Oh, my God. Although a few women reported missing undergarments, the goal was to cause commotion. The police arrived, and although no pranksters were charged, the news traveled, making headlines in the Chicago Tribune, Stars and Stripes, Time Magazine, and the New York Times. Next incident was March 12, 1952, when University of Michigan students raided a dormitory, creating publicity that would spark panty raids across the nation. Penn Station first raid involved 2,000 males marching on the women's dorms on April 8, 1952, cheered on by the women who opened their doors and windows and tossed out lingerie. A May 1952 article in The Technique, Georgia Tech student newspaper, reported that about 20 colleges had experienced panty raids, including several in the southeastern United States, such as Emory University, University of Georgia, University of Miami, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. By the end of 1952, spring term, the epidemic has spread to 52 campuses. See, this is interesting because this happened when, in 1952, I would have been a junior in high school in 52. So by your kayfabe age, right? So, I remember this well. I do the Maurice Chevalier. Yes, I remember it well. You know what that's from?
No, I don't.
You're talking to the son of my father. Obviously, I'm my father's son. And now in current day parlance, I have questions of if my father might have been gay. My father loved to play musicals. And we had all these albums, and we had, he bought a nice stereo way back when. Actually, it was one of those console things that had the AM/FM tuner and a turntable and a TV and the speakers all built into the big piece of furniture, you know what I'm talking about, back in the day.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. My parents had one.
And my dad would play these soundtracks. I can still sing most of the songs of South Pacific, My Fair Lady, Man of La Mancha, because I've heard them hundreds of times living at home with my mother and father. And nowadays, it's like the punchline in a joke that if you know show tunes, you're gay, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, here's the thing. I don't want to incriminate myself, but, I've been known to sing a show tune or two.
Okay.
Don't tell anybody, Brad. I won't post C Block on my website.
John, I was sort of surprised that in the top three we had this morning in our A block for May 19th, that the special session wasn't one of your top three. Why was not that in the top three?
We talked about it last week. We talked about Governor Kehoe. Would you like for me to touch on it real quickly, Brad?
Well, give the background of what happened, and people are still going like, why would Mike Kehoe wait till the last week to put this funding measure in for the Kansas City sports teams? And why did he do that? Why didn't he do that earlier in the session?
And do you remember us talking about this last week, Brent?
I do, but it still doesn't make any sense. Why would he wait till the last minute?
So, okay, so I'm just pulling up the direct quote from Mike Kehoe here. So on Friday, folks who actually went to my website over the weekend saw that I posted an interview that Pete Mundo did on KCMO radio. Shout out to Pete. And he had the governor on Friday talking about the special section, talking about what exactly was going on. And I'll just summarize it here, Brad, because I don't have the quote directly in front of me. But last week, we talked about the fact that the governor's team floated a plan to keep the Kansas City Royals in Missouri and keep the Chiefs in Missouri, keep the Royals in Missouri by offering them essentially a beneficial way for them to build a brand new stadium, and keep the Chiefs in Missouri by offering to pay for some of the upgrades to Arrowhead Stadium. Now, the governor dropped this plan on state legislators last week, and people seemed flummoxed by the idea that legislators only had a couple days to look at this, or at most 3 days to look at it before the session ended. Brad, I completely speculated, that this wasn't an error on the governor's part, that he simply wanted to do the negotiation tactic called anchoring, where you put forth a big fat proposal at the beginning that's probably doesn't seem reasonable, and that's just a way to start the conversation. On Friday on Pete Mundo's show, the governor came on and said, okay, we kind of knew that the legislature wouldn't pass this in the last week, but we wanted to start the conversation and get the ball rolling. So what do you know, Brad? That ended up being the strategy all along. And the governor indicated on Friday that he's looking at doing a special session for the legislature, hopefully in early June. Now, the legislature has to get together with the governor and figure out, okay, when logistically can we actually do this? But they have sort of a deadline, whether you consider the deadline to be real or not real. And the fact that Kansas has put a hard offer up on the table, Kansas really wants to get the Royals and the Chiefs. And as Governor Kehoe pointed out to Pete Mundo on Friday, hey, if you're the Royals and the Chiefs, you're in a great spot because you have two states that really want your business. But Kehoe says that the Royals and Chiefs are both Missouri teams, and essentially Missouri is going to do whatever it can do to keep them.
Okay, there's so much to unpack here. First off, you didn't talk about where Dave Schatz enters into this.
What's his part of it, Brad?
Dave Schatz is going to put on a $20 per beer tax on all beverages that are beverages of beer that have served at both Royal Stadium, at the K, and at Arrowhead Stadium. And if you actually send in your empty beer cans that you got at either of the stadiums, you can get a partial refund, and that's going to keep the Royals and the Chiefs here in St. Louis or in Kansas City. But, John, secondly, I would say you keep referencing keep the teams in Missouri. Never.
Hey, Brad, do you have an idea about this that you've talked about for 18 months?
I do. And
what's that idea, Brad?
Well, but see, here we go again. I don't understand. I'll never understand this thing. When the Rams, we tried to get the Rams, and if you remember the Purple Stallions, remember that? Poor old, what was his name? John Auble, who's no longer with us. He did the Purple Stallion song, if you remember that. Do you remember that, John, the Purple Stallion song?
No, not at all.
He did a song about they wanted to bring a team here, an expansion team to St. Louis for the NFL after we lost the football Cardinals, and they were going to be called the Purple Stallions. I don't know why the Purple Stallions, but it sounds to me like they wanted to put the stadium someplace in the Central West End by calling them the Purple Stallions, but that's neither here nor there.
Yikes. Okay, go ahead.
That's neither here nor there. Okay. Why in the world, think about this, John, if you were going to go into business and you were going to spend $100 million to build a building, but you were only going, let's say John's going to go in the restaurant business, and he's going to go in the restaurant business, and someone says, John, if you're going to do it right, you need to have a place in Clayton, and it's going to cost you X amount of money, and it's going to probably cost you $5 to $10 million to build the place out and have the kitchen installed and the whole bit, but you can only serve dinner 8 nights a year. And John would say, well, I'm pretty much a financial whiz-bang, but how in the world am I going to make any money by only opening my restaurant 8 nights a year? Get where I'm going with this, John?
I get exactly what you're saying. So you're saying that people should use – do you want to make – okay, so to summarize, you've said that Tashara Jones, back when she was mayor, and Sam Page should invite the Chiefs and the Royals to play here. Back when St. Louis actually had a population and was safe, we supported 2 Major League Baseball teams. We used to have an NFL team here. And you think that the Royals and the Chiefs should move to St. Louis, right?
Well, what's interesting is every article I read about this, and I've done a lot of reading in this, and the ones you've referenced, they don't talk about keeping the Chiefs and the Royals in Kansas City. They just talk about keeping them in Missouri. And I'm saying, okay, we got Busch Stadium. It's being used 81 days out of the year, and people go, whoa, look what a great magnet is for business in downtown St. Louis. Okay, if Busch Stadium had something going on almost every night from late March, now they start the season in late March, through October or September, maybe we had some playoff games in there, every night. Maybe there's an exception during the
Yep, we get it. 162, 81 plus 81
right.
is 162.
Okay, we already have a stadium. They put down new turf. We have this dome. Move the Royals here. You know, and see, here's what Mike Kehoe would do. And here's the point I'm trying to make. Mike Kehoe, Mr. Republican, Mr. Conservative guy, okay? I call him up and he goes on the radio with me right now. I said, Mike, what would you do if you were really a staunch supporter of not spending the public tax money for private interests? And he'd say, well, Brad, I'm glad you mentioned that. I had this great idea where we'd move the Royals to downtown St. Louis to play in the same stadium as the Cardinals, and that big old dome that we helped finance years ago that the county and the city paid for, we're going to move the Kansas City Chiefs in that dome, and no longer will the Kansas City Chiefs fan have to deal with rain or snow or cold temperatures like we had games this past season where some people had frostbite and they permanently disabled because of frostbite toes and fingers. That'll never happen because we'll have the Kansas City Chiefs in the dome in downtown St. Louis. But he will never do that. It does.
Yeah, but you know what? To your point, Brad, that would be good because Dave Schatz would be happy because people would have to spend a lot of gas driving from Kansas City to St. Louis. So that would be good for Missouri roads. I know that a union supports your idea. IACJ, you know, the International Association of Carjackers. They love the idea of having twice as much traffic down at Busch Stadium. That's twice as many cars to break into and steal from.
John, seriously, why, except for me, why does nobody talk about this? Is it?
Because it's completely infeasible. Because you have 2 teams that have had built a fan base for decades in a specific geographic area. And for everybody in your mind who you pretend would drive from Columbia to St. Louis, you lose people from Leavenworth, Kansas and Olathe, Kansas, who would no longer come to a Chiefs game because it's too far for them. And I know that it's not realistic and you're not being serious, and it's a creative idea. But obviously, people that live in the real world are going to find a way to keep the Chiefs in Clay County or at least somewhere close to downtown.
Okay, the St. Louis football Cardinals moved to Arizona, and now they sell the place out all the time, okay? You know, and who's to say that the Kansas City Chiefs, you know, can't come here to St. Louis? And because of the fact that what do you hear when you listen to ESPN 101 in the old days KFNS? What do all those dudes, what do Frank Cusimano and all those sports guys say? Wow, St. Louis is the best sports town in the country. The best sports town in the country. We've never had a day where the Cardinals haven't sold out Busch Stadium. Every single day.
There's some homerism there.
The Cardinals have sold out Busch Stadium, and the St. Louis fans know baseball. We know hockey. We know, and we've got this great soccer team which has won 10 games in a row. Mr. Cusimano, they've lost.
Not exactly. Yeah, they're on a losing streak.
They've lost teams.
Brad, and you also forgot pickleball.
We've got pickleball. We've got chicken and pickle out there in St. Charles. We've got the T.R. Hughes Stadium, which is now, because of Mike Carter, called CarShield Field. We've got all these things here in St. Louis. It's the best sports town in the world. Matter of fact, when anybody has anything to do with sports, they come here to St. Louis. Matter of fact, that's why ESPN is moving their headquarters to downtown St. Louis.
Yeah, I like it, Brad. And you know what? Maybe they could put a basketball court down there, and then they could have bring back the St. Louis Hawks. We could move them from Atlanta to St. Louis.
John, I get so sick of the homers on KMOX and ESPN and the old days KFNS. Oh, we have the best sports fans in the world. Our St. Louis sports fans are so well educated. They know everything about. They know.
It's a little self-congratulatory. I'll agree with you, Brad. I don't like people patting themselves on the back.
They know how many bunions Stan Musial had on his right foot. They know.
Yeah, it was 3. But go ahead. You can see them. They're actually on when you meet people down at the Stan the Man statue before a game. You can actually see the sculptor included the bunions on there, Brad.
Do you know what's really sad?
What's that?
When I take my youngest son to Lester's. You ever been to Lester's?
Oh yeah.
And what sits out front of
It's
Lester's?
it's a mini Stan the Man statue outside of Lester's.
And my son didn't know who that was.
Oh, which son?
My youngest son. He didn't know who that was.
Yeah.
He had no idea.
Not everybody's into Cardinal stuff, Brad.
But hold on a minute. According to ESPN and ESPN 101 and the old KFNS, matter of fact, there were times I heard this. I had a friend of mine that worked at the OBGYN, the baby factory out at St. John's, and she told me the fact that there were women that gave birth, and when the babies came out of the you-know-where, they would go Cardinals, go Cardinals. That's how much the sports fans are in St. Louis.
Yeah, their first words are Whitey Herzog, actually. Brad, we've covered it all. We've covered vaginas and Tulsi Gabbard, and I think that's pretty much, once you add a white streak to that, I think we know what happens.
And panty raids. We forgot about panty
and
raids.
And panty raids, Brad. And who wears panties in 2025?
We didn't talk about the St. Louis being number one in something else, which is not good. You know what I'm talking about, John?
I saw a headline.
Yes.
Yeah, I happened to link to it on my website over the weekend.
But it wasn't the top three either. Man, I'm disappointed.
It sure wasn't, Brad. There's only three. That's why it's called the top three.
I'm getting disappointed in John. All the things I think you should be top three. Okay, John, you were going to say something? Go ahead, say.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, that KFNS, that speaking of like Randy Carricker and those guys, Sports Hub is the Dave Greene operation that has Randy Carricker and all those guys on it now.
But they're not on the air yet, are they?
No, it's an internet thing, Brad.
Yeah, but
it could be a model for KDHX. No, that's a different thing than the KFNS thing that you're thinking of. Dave Greene has run Sports Hub for a few years now.
John, can I tell you something? What you and I
Please
need to do, you and I need to put together a bid for KDHX.
Oh yeah, that sounds realistic. What are you gonna go? Are you gonna make a run down to Valley Park and cash in some recyclables, Brad?
That's right. It's Scrap Mart. I got enough aluminum cans, so I might be able to make a dent in that thing. Okay, John. John, thank you for making my day today, okay?
Oh, you too, Brad.
And by the way, John, I'm going to make you super jealous. You know why?
Because you're going to go down and investigate Tulsi Gabbard's gray streaks everywhere.
No, because of the fact that when you and I were on the air here, I was on the air nationally all over the country.
Ooh, doing what?
I was on the TJ show.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was surprised the other morning I put on 107.1 and I actually heard the TJ show and I heard a local promo that they did for Westplex 107.1.
It's local.
I didn't know if that was still a thing.
Yeah, it's a local station. Yeah.
Well, I don't see you advertise it anywhere, but that's pretty consistent with all your stations, right?
Bye, John. Talk to you later.
See you tomorrow.